Thanks for staying with us. Time now for Africa News with me, Georgia Calvin-Smith. Tonight, several miners are still missing, almost 2,000 metres underground in a blazing shaft near Johannesburg. Rescuers managed to get to 8 trapped, but are still looking for those unaccounted for. Also, in a gruesome example of how far Central African Republic still has to go after 10 months of violence and chaos, soldiers fresh from an address by the president publicly stab and torch a suspected former rebel. And Kenya has been accused of deliberately trying to wreck the case against President Kenyatta. Prosecutors at the ICC say that they've been prevented from getting the documents they need for its crimes against humanity case. First up, 9 gold miners are still missing after a fire and rockfall trapped the group they were working with a mile underground not far from Johannesburg. Rescue workers battled through the smoke and debris and managed to pull out 8 workers who'd found a hideout in a refuge bay at Harmony Gold's Dawn Cop mine on Tuesday. Engineers are still working on trying to locate those miners still accounted for. South Africa's mines are some of the deepest in the world. The accident comes alongside a call from workers for their wages to be raised to take the dangers they face into account. Well, France 24's MZ Ferrer is in Cape Town. She tells us more about some of the difficulties rescuers faced in trying to reach the trapped men today.
The rescue workers simply don't know where those 9 missing miners are. The accident happened at 1,700 meters underground. There was a rockfall that triggered a fire, so they're battling to try and locate them through smoke in the mine shaft and falling debris. Those who were rescued have managed to reach a refuge bay in the mine, and they say that they hope that the missing 9 have managed to do the same, which would give them access to compressed air and water, and which would mean there's a good chance of survival.
Now, MC, gold mining unions have been threatening to go on strike for a while now. They say that their wages don't reflect the dangers they face on the job.
Well, safety is just one of the concerns voiced by the miners. It's a big issue in South Africa's mines, where about 100 miners die underground annually. This is, of course, an improvement on a decade ago when that figure was 3 times higher. But it's just one of the issues. These strikes are driven by demands for better living conditions at the mines and for a minimum salary of about 850 euros a month. The demands are the same in the gold and the platinum industries. The gold industry is at the moment holding its breath to see whether workers will proceed with the strike. They've gone to court to try and obtain an interdict, and the court hasn't, to prevent them from doing so, and the court hasn't yet given a ruling. In the platinum industry, some 80,000 workers have been on strike for 2 weeks. And we heard tonight that the wage negotiations have deadlocked, so it means that strike will tomorrow enter its 3rd week.
MZ Ferrer there for us in Cape Town. A gruesome lynching in Bongi today highlights the difficulties in returning order to Central African Republic. Some viewers may find the following images upsetting. About 20 uniformed soldiers repeatedly stabbed a man they'd accused of being a former Seleka rebel to death before dragging the body through the streets. The corpse was then dismembered and torched before crowds. It happened just meters from where soldiers had earlier been listening to a speech from interim President Catherine Samba-Panza. She was representing the army to the nation after it effectively disappeared during the chaos that followed a rebel takeover last year. Samba-Panza had warned that those responsible for all atrocities would be held to account and vowed to secure the majority of the country within a month. The Crimes Against Humanity trial of Kenya's president has hit more obstacles. Judges from the International Criminal Court will decide whether to suspend proceedings against Uhuru Kenyatta after prosecutors complained that Kenya was deliberately obstructing investigators looking into his role in fatal post-electoral violence 6 years ago. Well, Nicholas Germain has more.
It's the ICC prosecutors' last attempt to keep the Kenyan president's case alive. They say they now absolutely need Uhuru Kenyatta's financial records, which might show he paid large sums of money to perpetrators of post-election violence 6 years ago. The judge asked the prosecutor if the case was doomed.
The financial information about the movement of the funds, do you think it's enough to sustain your charges?
Absent the financial records of which we have spoken, the remaining stones unturned are better characterized as pebbles, and the realistic prospect that turning them will yield real, potentially conclusive evidence is minimal.
Prosecutors are furious that Nairobi is not providing those records. But Uhuru Kenyatta's lawyers said it was a blame-shifting exercise. They believe the case against their client has now collapsed. If it does, it would be another blow for the ICC, which has only secured one conviction since it was set up 11 years ago against Congolese warlord Thomas Lubanga. Western countries have mixed feelings about the Kenyatta case. They are keen to back the ICC, but also want to maintain good relations with Kenya, a key ally in the battle against Islamic radicals in Somalia.
Here in Paris, it's day 2 of France's first trial of a suspect in the Rwandan genocide. Kigali's former intelligence chief, Pascal Simbikangwa, denies playing a part in the mass killing of around 800,000 Tutsis and moderate Hutus in 1994. Well, many Rwandans have welcomed France's move to finally play a part in judging suspected perpetrators of the bloodshed.
Many Rwandans in the capital Kigali appear satisfied to see the opening of the trial of Pascal Simbikangwa in Paris.
We are very happy as Rwandans to see that the genocide perpetrators are still being followed wherever they are.
Former Captain Simbikangwa appeared Tuesday in a Paris high court. He stands accused of participating in genocide. His trial is expected to last 6 weeks. Rwandans waited 20 years before seeing the first alleged genocide participants tried in France. Many say it is high time to clean up the country's image.
As Rwandans, we trust that this is also a beginning of the process for healing, because most of the Rwandans were seeing French as a people, let's say as a government, as some people involved in supporting the perpetrators.
The Justice Minister also wondered why it took 20 years for France to judge Rwandans suspected of participating in the genocide of 1994, though some of them live in France. Many people suspected of participating in the genocide do live in France. It's true, there were always investigations, but they always took 10, 15, or 20 years. At some point, it felt like the French were not making the effort to go all the way. France has been accused by Rwanda of arming and protecting the genocide killers. But this did not prevent the Justice Minister from offering to help by sending witnesses to testify. Rwandans say the most important thing is that former Captain Simbikangwa pay for what he did. He is considered to be one of the main organizers of the genocide.
To Zimbabwe now, where thousands are facing a rather bleak outlook for the year ahead as the country grapples with a volatile and uncertain economy. Analysts argue that the economic crisis has deepened since longtime President Robert Mugabe won re-election in disputed elections last July. Our Julia Seeger reports.
The unemployed are drifting towards the capital to look for better opportunities. Most of them, however, end up selling vegetables, trinkets, and mobile phones on the streets. Lamek Shidziro is a casual worker. He's one of the thousands of Zimbabweans who are finding it hard to earn a decent wage.
I make about $100 a month. My rent costs $70. Electricity costs me $30 to $40, while water costs about $10 to $15 where I live. So it is a difficult life, the life we live.
Zimbabwe's economic performance has been dampened by the continued slowdown of key sectors. According to the UN, the country's unemployment rate is as high as 60%. And 2014 isn't looking any better. More than 700 companies have closed since the Christmas break. And according to unions, 300 employees are being laid off every week. Experts say the government's capacity to turn the economy around is dwindling. Many Zimbabweans, however, expect President Mugabe to deliver on his electoral promises, even though the economic crisis has deepened since he won re-election in July. Others, mainly in the capital, have turned to gambling as a new way to make money. Downtown betting halls have never been as packed as in January.
Well, that wraps up African news for me for today, but I'll hand you back now to Mark Owen for news and headlines from around the world.
Georgia Calvin-Smith with African News. Back, of course, tomorrow for those 2 appearances. Essential dates, essential rendezvous here, live from Paris. We take a short break. After that, Small World News. Plus, of course, we've got sport for you. Who will join Paris Saint-Germain in the final of the League Cup here in France? Wait and see. Stay with us.